Hi, my name's Laura. Thank you for joining us at Homestead for Life. We are going to talk about Shampoo Ginger today. Probably we should have talked about this a few weeks ago when my plant was in better shape and it was more in season. But better late than never, because Shampoo is one of those, ginger in general, is one of those plants that comes back every year. So it's sort of today or in like almost a year. So we're going to hit some highlights. My ginger looks a little ragged right now. It's at the end of the season, for one. For two, I chopped off a piece, which essentially just means I staked the shovel in here between some stalks and gave some to a friend of mine who wants to grow it. And then we've been letting the chickens free range. So they have been destroying it, digging up the dirt around it, knocking them over, breaking the stalks. So it looks a little sad. We'll take some pictures as well, because it's the end of the season. Some of the pine cones have fallen and dried out and shriveled. We're not going to use those today. But I've got, I think, about 3 left that are usable. So Shampoo Ginger, you can eat the roots, just like any ginger. They taste horrible. I wouldn't suggest it, but you can if you had to. What it's really used for is the pine cones. And what you do is you squeeze the juice out of the pine cones. It's sort of it looks like a watery goo, but it smells fantastic, and you can use it to wash your hair. It's actually one of the main, at least, smell ingredients in the Paul Mitchell shampoo. I think it's Awapui. I'll double check that, and we'll put that in the notes on the video for you. But a lot of people use it to wash their hair just as it is, or add it to an unscented shampoo. I add it to unscented lotion and use it on my hands because I love the smell. It does not store long term very well unless it's refrigerated, so you're only going to get a few weeks out of it. If you squeeze out the pine cones early in the season, they will fill back up with goo if you don't cut the pine cones off. They'll fill back up and you can squeeze them out again later. They don't have as much later, but they do refill some. So you can hit up the same pine cone over and over again if you do it carefully. We're not going to do it carefully today because we're at the end of the season. They're not going to refill. So I'm just going to cut them off and squeeze them where you can see them better. Okay? So I'm going in, guys. That one's still juicy. Nope, that one looks rough. Okay, so these are our pine cones. I was able to get 3. You probably can't see too well, but this one's still really juicy. It's got the goo dripping from it. We're going to squeeze these out. Then we're going to strain and filter the goo, and then we can use the goo for various things. So we're going to do that inside. Please note beforehand, you always want to strain and filter it, because this is a live plant out in the world. It's going to have bugs in it. So when we strain it and you see a bunch of dirt and bugs, do not be shocked. That's normal. That's nature. It's fine. See you inside. We're back in our Homestead for Life kitchen here with our Shampoo Ginger that we are going to process and put in a jar so that we can use it as shampoo. A couple notes about Shampoo Ginger. It grows in zones 8 through 10, and it will come back every year. So we've had this growing for probably about 4 or 5 years now. We did make a mistake initially, and we built these beautiful raised beds, and we planted it in there originally, and it took over. It was a little overwhelming. We'll share some pictures of that. It was a little too successful. So we dug it all up, which was an adventure in and of itself, and we relocated it to the spot where you saw today. And obviously it was not in its best shape today, but it usually looks much better than that depending on the time of year. And it comes back every year. It's going to die back. All those stalks are going to fall down. They make a great mulch, and then next year it just reappears. Because we're not eating the rhizomes on this ginger, it stays there undisturbed, and there's just more and more of it every single year. So to get started, we're going to take our Bract, B-R-A-C-H-T, so I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but anyway, we're going to take our pine cones. These are short pine cones. The first year we grew it, they grew really tall and skinny. They start out green and then they turn red. When they turn red is when you want to harvest them. And I'm sure you can't see, but it's already oozing down my fingers here. So these are small ones, probably because the spot we moved it to doesn't get quite as much sun as the first one, so they don't get as huge. Plus we filled those raised beds with a lot of bunny poop and other really great growing medium, whereas now they're pretty much just neglected in the corner. Remember what I said about being out in the world and Mother Nature and all that, right? So there are bugs in this. We are going to screen out the bugs and some of the dirt, and then we are going to put it in this flour sack and filter it out again to get more of the dirt out. Okay, so this one is really just to catch the bugs, and you just squeeze it as much as you can, get as much of that juice out. I feel like I've got just as much juice on my fingers as I do in the bowl, but that is okay. Alright, Pinecone 1. Pinecone 2. Yeah, these are old and a little dried up. They're not giving us nearly as much as when I actually harvest them one time. This one was juicier, but still not as much as when harvested in season. If you're going to harvest this on the plant so that the pine cones refill, you've got to be really careful, because you want to sort of bend the stalk over a bowl and squeeze it out as best you can. Alright, so we have not a whole lot. So that's okay. This one might not be shampoo. This one might get used instead as just a hand wash while it lasts, because it does smell fantastic. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to rinse my hands, but then we're going to pour this through the flour sack into the jar. Okay, so instead of using our pint-sized jar, we're going to use this little one. Can't remember what size it is, but since we don't have a lot to work with, that's what we're going to use, which actually is going to make it easier to access too, so we can just dip our fingers in there to get the shampoo ginger out for washing our hands. So we're going to kind of tuck the flour sack in there and pour our shampoo in there. If you're going to use this for shampoo, it will clean your hair. It's got a lot of those fantastic properties plus the smell, but it does not get sudsy. Okay, so if you need that sudsy feel to feel clean, you're not going to get that from this alone. Okay, you're going to need to mix it with something else. So once you've got it like this, I'm going to twist it up at the top, but then we're just going to squeeze it out through the sack here. You can, if you're more patient, which we're not in general or for the video, You can just let it drain through naturally on its own time, in which case you will not lose shampoo all over your hand. So, and counter. So that is our shampoo ginger, ready to be used.